Hey there, Shortcuts. Stephen here. This is the, I think, 13th Shortcuts price list of 2025. This is an audiophile US, German, and Aussie list of all sorts of genres. And it's got some interesting things. As always, price list will go out this Wednesday, the 9th of April at 9 p.m. Sydney time sharp. If you would like to be in the price list and you aren't already, send me an email at shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. All right. So, where to start? Well, firstly, thank you. There's a bunch of you who have joined up from the Glebe Record Fair. That was yesterday on Saturday. Very good it was too. But I've got a bunch of things here that are kind of new and interesting. So let's see what you make of them. Last week, I had an Eric Clapton live record, just one night, on Nautilus Super Disc, and it was super popular. 5 or 6 of you wanted it. Stu was the fastest on the trigger. I have another super disc here tonight. It's probably even more famous. And I did a listening test earlier today. I'm going to tell you a little bit of some of the notes I took from this particular record. It's one I think that most of you will know. It is the Nautilus super disc of Fleetwood Mac's classic 77, pretty sure it's 77, record, Rumours. The little heard, little known Rumours. Just a few little tracks: Secondhand News, Dreams, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, Songbird, The Chain You Make, Lovin' Fun, Oh Daddy, Gold Dust Woman. Outrageously interesting record. Now this is the Nautilus pressing, which means, of course, it comes in that kind of iconic blue. The inner is absolutely perfect, and the record is on the Super Disc label, made in the USA. So, what did I learn in playing this record today? So, Nautilus recordings in general were half-speed mastered, and what I can tell immediately is how high quality the vinyl is. It is quiet. It has, it just allows the soundstage to really shine. And I think that's what I heard. This version, and I'm going to compare here to the Aussie version, the Japanese version, and the 2LP version that was released, I think it was Kevin Gray, a few years back. I've got all of those, and I'm very familiar with them. This Nautilus version struck me about the clarity, detail, and instrument separation. The background vocals were clearer than I've heard on any pressing. The guitar textures are really clear. Mick Fleetwood's hi-hats, super clean. Congas, really well, really pronounced. Very dynamic, very open. I think maybe a little bit almost too clean compared to some of the other pressings. But I think that might also just because of that, analog warmth that I really enjoy. This record sounded incredibly tight, so well defined, just total absence of boom. The only criticism I would have of the 2LP version from a few years back is that it is a bit boomy in places. This thing, it is not. It's the NR8 pressing from Nautilus, pressed in the USA, as I mentioned. The jacket is absolutely perfect. It's got that strip across the top, kind of almost competing with MoFi, isn't it? I think these records are not as pricey as the equivalent MoFi. But what I would say is that this is probably the most affordable audiophile copy that I've heard, in that it is clearly a high-end record. And if your system has that capability, there is an immense amount to get out of this Nautilus half-speed mastered recording. It sounds great, and I kind of surprisingly great. I thought about keeping it, but I've got too many copies. But this one, I think, will be loved by one of you more than by me, and that's the point of this club. All right, now I am going to talk about a band that I've been increasingly enjoying, and I've managed to gather up some UK presses, a couple of EPs, bits and pieces. There were some of these in the box at Glebe as well. I have the UK first press of two Cocteau Twins records, one from 1982 and one from 1983. The 1982 is Garland's, the UK first press of Garland's, and the 1983 is probably the more lauded head over heels, the Cocteau Twins. So let's talk about Garland's first. It is the A1B1 pressing, so the early days of this particular record. I'm just going to grab it. It doesn't have an inner, it just has the UK kind of paper sleeve, which is obviously better than the Aussie cheap JVC, but the head over heels has the inner. Garland's is a more punchy and gritty, kind of almost new wave record compared to Head Over Heels. Head Over Heels is truly ephemeral and shimmering, and probably getting into that unique, cloistered kind of sound that Cocteau Twins became famous for. That's not to say Garland's doesn't have this kind of atmospheric, claustrophobic feel. It is a more raw record than Head Over Heels. It's lacking, I guess, what's the name of the bass player? I noted his name down. Robin Guthrie obviously played the guitar. Simon Raymond. He wasn't in the band yet, and the bass I think the bass lines were also played by, in this particular case, Robin Guthrie, and they're really cool. Really, really cool. Probably one of the highlights of the record. The UK first press of Garland and the UK first press of Head Over Heels. In addition, I've got this Cocteau Twins EP. It's also UK in the UK paper sleeve. And this is it. And I really like this sleeve. And this one is called... What was it called again? I can't remember now. I might have to look this up. But the tracks are The Spangle Maker, Pearly Dewdrops, Drops, and Pepper Tree. Released 1984, so it followed on from these three records. And yeah, super cool stuff. If you're a Cocteau Twins fan, these UK presses are the best, I think, in terms of collectability and sound quality that were ever made. I mean, Head Over Heels really starts to lead the charge when it comes to kind of shoegaze. That layered guitar, textures, dreamy, immersive. I before I found my own UK copies, I had some represses, and I found those to be quite noisy, which is kind of annoying when it comes to listening to the Cocteau Twins. What I like about those early pressings is they don't sound as digital. They don't sound as flat. They're just really good. Really, really good. Okay, now something completely different. This is the Aussie first press of Nina Simone's Gifted and Black from 1974. This is predominantly mono. It's in beautiful condition on the Contempo Raries label. I mean, Gifted in Black is, I think, one of the more interesting compilations because of how far back it goes in her back catalogue. And therefore, it has some really both thrilling and chilling stuff because, you know, we all know Nina can be angry when she wants to be. The UK, this has got some great Nina. I mean, almost to the extent that I think if you're not a Nina Simone kind of aficionado, that is one of the best compilations that you can buy to get you into kind of the broad Nina kind of oeuvre, because it's pretty great. It actually sounds nice. It's not kind of reference audiophile quality, but it sounds really, really nice. And yeah, I think definitely one for those early on their journey with Nina. I like it very much. Okay, let's talk about the Aussie press of U2's Unforgettable Fire. I kind of vacillate between Unforgettable Fire and Apr9 Baby as my two kind of touchstone U2 records. The first that I really got to know was Joshua Tree, because when those three kind of killer singles came out, in fact, I have a copy of Joshua Tree in the crates, and it's been now 2 record fairs and it hasn't been bought. And I think it's because a lot of people have bought the recent 2 LP represses. There's been a few of them. And I think the problem with the 2 LP version, and the reason I keep reaching for the single LP myself, is because that first side is one of the great first sides of the 80s. You have Still Haven't Found What I'm... No, you've Where the Streets Have No Name, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, With or Without You, Bullet the Blue Sky, Running to Standstill. Absolutely killer first side. Second side, not so much, which I think is, you know, I'm happy to debate that with someone. But getting up and having to flip around between, you know, With or Without You and Bullet Blue Sky, it's not for me. So there's a really nice Joshua Tree in the crates if anyone doesn't have it. But Unforgettable Fire and Apr9 Baby were the two then that I explored next. So when I got a cassette of Joshua Tree and really enjoyed it, I then was given a cassette of Unforgettable Fire, which I think maybe because all my schoolmates were into Joshua Tree, I was the one who kind of went, "No, I like Unforgettable Fire." But, you know, it's clearly not as good a record. But for some reason, I love it. And I love the title track. I love Wire, obviously Pride. It's just got some songs, 40, that I just, not 40, it's just got some songs I just really, really love. And MLK, that's the last one. And obviously it's got Bad as well. And that Aussie copy is decent. It's pretty decent. I mean, I wouldn't compare it to UK or Japanese, but the UK and Japanese are a lot more expensive and a lot harder to get here in Australia. A really clean copy is good, unless you decide that it's a record that you really need, you know, the upper echelon kind of recordings, then you know, it's really good. And it's not an audiophile record anyway, I don't think. It's produced in a very claustrophobic way, so it doesn't really warrant spending huge amounts of money on. I will admit that the Japanese version is superior, but it is kind of more than twice the price. So there you go. All right, now here's one that I think is Aussie and sounds as good as the Japanese, and that is the Aussie press of Diamond Dogs, David Bowie. Now, this is another record that is not an audiophile recording, in my view. But this Aussie copy is really cleanly mastered. It sounds really nice. It's obviously, I don't think it's top tier Bowie album. It's a follow up of Ziggy. Kind of has some of the Ziggyisms, and he hasn't quite figured out what he's going to do next. Future Legend, Diamond Dogs, Sweet Thing, Rebel Rebel. Gosh, I think Rebel Rebel might be my least favorite Bowie single, but I really like the second side, Rock and Roll We're the Dead, 1984, which is an amazing song. Big Brother. There's a lot of history of this record that you can particularly tell on side two that Bowie wanted to do something about with the novel of 1984, and he was refused the rights by the George Orwell family, or maybe the family or whatever institute were looking after what he did. But a really, really cool record. Obviously, I love Bowie. My dog's called Bowie. And this is a really, really nice copy and one of the better Aussie sounding records. This is one of the best sounding records in the list, probably only second to the Nautilus Rumours. It is the West German first press of King Crimson's Red. This is one heavy record. Red, Fallen Angel, what a track that is. Oh my gosh. One More Red Nightmare, which I think should give you a feel for just how loud and confronting and kind of pummeling the guitars are on this record. Side 2, Providence. And then the last song, which I think has become an iconic King Crimson song. All 12 minutes of Starless. Robert Fripp on guitar and mellotron, John Wetton bass and voice, and the incredible Bill Bruford, or William Bruford as he's credited on the sleeve, on drums. I don't know, 1974, year of my birth. I suspect there's a few people out there that might say that's the best album released in 1974. And these West German vinyl presses are superb. I've got to get a few, maybe 4 or 5. I highly, highly rate them. All right, now again on for something a little bit different. What about this? This is the US first press of What a Life by the Divinyls. And it's got, this is the inner, there's the record, which will look a bit unusual for all of you in that it's on the blue chrysalis label. So I'm not a massive Divinyls fan, not a massive fan of this record, but these US presses, as is always the case, they really do a good job of accentuating the bottom end. So if you like a bit of oomph, this record will deliver your oomph in all your oomph-ing places. The Divinyls, What a Life. I played a bit of it earlier. I was trying to see. I thought that the drums were particularly punchy, and I really liked. It was really kind of good imaging, really sharp stereo. But I guess I said, bit of oomph. I think that if you're into the Divinyls, I think that's a keeper. That US press, highly, highly, highly enjoyed it. All right, now Dr. Feelgood. I've put a couple of Dr. Feelgood records up over the last little while. I think one of the better bands of the late 70s from the UK. They've grown on me a lot. I first listened to this record as part of a listening group a few years back, and I didn't enjoy it very much. So that's the UAE. This is the Aussie press, I'm pretty sure. Or is it American? No, it's Aussie. It's United Artists. It kind of makes reference to festival records on the sleeve. Deep blues, kind of groovy rock. Give it a listen if you don't know Dr. Feelgood. But my gosh, you can dive down a rabbit hole with this band. Look at that sleeve, so grimy, tells you a lot about the band. Okay, I've got a few classics to go. I'm going to flick through, and then a couple of reggae compilations at the end. I have the cream of Eric Clapton, the Aussie press of this. Layla, I Feel Free, Sunshine of Your Love, Strange Brew, White Room, Cocaine, Lay Down Sally, Wonderful Tonight, etc. I also have a record that I kind of like, although I will say that it's not as dynamic as some other records can be, but I think it's fun, and that is the Aussie first press of ZZ Top's Eliminator. I mean, by the time you get to this era of ZZ Top, you're talking about a very digital forward sound anyway, a very crunchy, gated drum, processed guitars, even clearly layers of drum machines. So the mastering is really kind of about how big the record sounds. I think the Aussie pressing sounds pretty good. It is a little bit more compressed compared to the Japanese, but it is 1/3 of the price of the Japanese, and that's a really, really nice copy. I would say the same about Dire Straits' Communique. Obviously, you can, I think here, the UK first press of Communique is, I think, the kind of the bar setter, but it's really hard to find in Australia, and even in the UK, it's often noisy and not great quality. The Aussie one's super solid. You cannot go wrong, and again, very inexpensive. I've got two kind of really interesting reggae compilations to finish off this particular list. I do love reggae compilations. Sometimes just the way to be. The Reggae Party. I've played this so many times. Desmond Decker, Bob Marley and the Wailers, the Pioneers, the Maytals, Ken Booth, the Gaylads, the Melodians. It's just huge amount of fun. And that is a UK first press of that. It is bassy as all hell. And that's pretty much what you want. And then I've got this, which probably the most interesting of all the reggae compilations. This is the Reggae Party by the Jumbo Sterling's All Stars. And this is property of the ABC. So this came from the ABC's vinyl library. Spanish Harlem, Jenny, some other kind of Studio One classics. There's a couple of reggae comps to finish the list. If you would like to be on the price list for that, for the email with the price list for that list, drop me an email. shortcutsrecords@gmail.com. There you have it. I hope you find that enjoyable and interesting. Some new records to explore, and some fun presses as always. Thank you. The next list will be all Japanese. Over and out.